And now you'll find out the secret behind Flight 914 and why you only needed to know how to use the internet to solve it. Many people have a fear of flying in airplanes, and this is called aerophobia. I wonder how such people would feel if their plane just disappeared. Not in the sense of exploding, falling out of the sky, or something so tragic happening to it, but actually just vanished. It was and it wasn't, all of a sudden. And the people disappeared with it too, only where to? According to history, a Pan-American Douglas DC-4 with 57 passengers on board flew from New York to Miami in 1955. However, something unimaginable happened. He just disappeared, vanished into thin air. The story did not end there. 37 years later in 1992 it landed, but not at its destination, Caracas, Venezuela. Imagine the look on their faces. Everything had changed in 37 years. The pilots were terrified after the plane landed, finding out they were in Caracas instead of Miami, so they took off again in fear and were never seen again. That's the story. It says everywhere that there is incontrovertible evidence that this is a true story about the disappearance and reappearance of the plane many years later. Eyewitness accounts. A small calendar from 1955, which the pilot threw on the runway a few seconds before takeoff in Caracas. The tape recorded radio communication between the pilot and the control tower / That all this represents irrefutable proof that this supernatural plane landing story was real after all. Well, let's try to find out where the truth lies. We actually know the answer to what really happened to Flight 914, and we promise you that in our story, we will set the record straight. Flight 914, if you type this into the search engines, you can read the full history of this flight with dialogues and so on. Having studied many articles and theories about Flight 914, it is all the same. It becomes clear that people believe it all and attribute some of their own details, invented facts and the like. Referring supposedly to the fact that, oh, my God, they flew right over the Bermuda Triangle. It makes sense, they hit a wormhole, that's something endless. All so clever, including on YouTube, people tell their version of how the plane disappeared, where they were for all 37 years, attribute conspiracy theories and other nonsense there, but no one tries to get to the bottom of it. Ridiculous, isn't it? Even if it was a wormhole, it's unlikely they would have gone down it 2 whole times, flying into it first near Miami, flying back out of it in Venezuela, and then repeating the same thing when the plane took off in Caracas. And who wrote those dialogues in the cockpit with the Caracas control tower anyway? Did they have a journalist sitting in the cockpit listening to their conversations and writing them down in his notebook? If the dialogues were invented, what prevents you from inventing the whole story? As the story of Flight 914 goes, the pilot was simply shocked when he saw a civilian jet in the car park. I don't know what exactly he was shocked about, because jets were still around in 1954. Experts on YouTube channels, in articles and so on, often stressing. Look at the 1955 calendar that was thrown out of the cockpit by the pilot, isn't that proof? But we at the channel have learned to use the internet. And after spending 2 minutes of our time we discovered that the calendar in this story, which everyone presents as a proof of the veracity of the story, turned out to be from 1965. And it was actually found somewhere on an abandoned oil rig. Well, it doesn't add up much so far. There are still recorded radio communications. There isn't. It's missing. It has mysteriously disappeared as usual. We need to find some more leads. Yeah, then we'll look for them on American websites. After all, it makes sense if a plane and people go missing, their loved ones start looking for them. And to our surprise we found such leads. It turns out that the newspaper Weekly World News May 7, 1985, in a special issue of Fantastic Stories, describes the story in detail. And indeed, just as on the sites we examined, the story of Flight 914 is described word for word. That is, the Weekly World News simply copied the information and posted it on their websites. Honestly, we weren't even expecting that. So we even decided to read the online version of this May 7, 1985 issue of the newspaper. And what did we find, apart from the story of Flight 914? There were also articles. Demons burned my hubby to the ground. Baby born with tattoo dated 1917. And other nonsense. Ah yes. An important detail. We forgot to say that the main theme of the paper was specifically designed to be a joke. And all the stories are made up. Weekly World News republished this story at least 2 more times, once in 1993 and again in 1999. Curiously, the publication used 2 different photographs of 2 different men as if they showed eyewitness air traffic controller Juan de la Corte. Similar to today's misinformation purveyors, Weekly World News had the habit of using unrelated photographs to illustrate their stories. The image of the plane in this article, for instance, does not show Pan Am Flight 914 landing in Miami after 37 years. This is actually a stock photograph available via Alamy, which lists the plane as a Douglas DC-4. Published from 1979 to 2007, the tabloid would later relaunch as an online-only publication. They even have a website and a funny splash screen. In other words, Weekly World News isn't exactly a reputable source of news. The story of Pan Am Flight 914 does not begin at a New York airport in 1955. It actually starts with an article published in Weekly World News 3 decades later. Lastly, we searched through newspaper archives for any contemporary articles relating to the disappearance of a plane. Unsurprisingly, we were unable to locate any credible news accounts about the disappearance of Pan Am Flight 914. We don't understand why people are too lazy to find information. We live in the age of the internet. Especially when the history includes name of the plane, flight number names. We've even found what a true story Flight 914 might have been based on. In 1955 there was a Douglas D-4 crash on Medizin-Bow Flight 409. On that flight, the exact same plane as in the fictitious Flight 914 crashed into a mountain and 66 people died. It was the worst plane crash in the USA at the time. Well, that's just for the record. While the fictional story of Pan Am Flight 914 originated with the tabloid Weekly World News, it is reminiscent of a 1961 episode of the sci-fi show entitled The Odyssey of Flight 33.
Skip it. Do you know what that is?
Don't believe everything they write and post on the internet. All they care about is popularity and lots of likes. By the way, this Flight 914 story has been floating around the internet for a very, very long time. And it's not incomprehensible to us why everyone has noticed it now. I guess there's no point in posting anything on their websites and YouTube channels. All these fact pools are just versions, for the benefit of uneducated, naive people. We hope that soon these facts will actually be facts and not silly stories that take half an hour to debunk. Give us a like if you already knew this Flight 914 messed up story without us. You can go to the comments and suggest new topics on our YouTube channel for discussion. And who knows, maybe it will be your topic that will be next. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel. See you soon.